I don't know what we got.
Building committee.
Recording in progress. Hold on a second. All right, so we're good. Yeah, so the Cumberland Building Committee meeting of June 16th, 2021 to order at 6:04 p.m. And I'm going to ask us to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the next order of business is the approval of the previous minutes. I know they were provided in some folder. Did everyone get those?
Yep.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Is there any comments, or would someone like to make the motion to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2021 and May 10th, 2021?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
So there's a motion by Superintendent Mitchell, and the second was?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by, is that Mr. Lindgren?
Yep.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the previous meeting minutes, which are April 4th, 2021 and May 10th, 2021. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor would signify by saying aye.
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 Any negative would be nay. So that passes. And what is does anyone have the official count on that?
6-0.
6-0. Thank you. Okay, next is Collier's Project Leaders Financial Report. Holly?
Yes, thank you. This financial report has changed very little since our last meeting, since there had been no contract added to it. There have been some approved invoices, Collier's, and some abatement checks to the state. But other than that, this has gone unchanged. Once we get past this approval process over the next few contracts, this particular financial report will have a lot more information, and we can review it in more detailed form.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Are there any questions from the committee with respect to the Project Leaders Financial Report? And Alex has joined us, right? So are we up to 7 now?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, Alex. Okay, so we're going to move on to review and recommendation to award for $79 million bond contracts, McLaughlin, Cumberland Hill Elementary School. So we've got A, Phase 1 Environmental Assessment and Report recommendation to award. We'll start there, Holly.
Yeah, John, I'll let John Copeland take this.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Good evening, everybody. The bids for the environmental assessment, we received those a couple weeks ago. We actually received a total of 5 bids, and essentially the scope of the work is consistent between all 5 companies. This is just the preliminary Phase 1 scope of work for the J.J. McLaughlin Cumberland Hill Elementary School site. So based on the bids that were received, our recommendation is to go with the lowest of the 5 bidders, and that would be Gordon R. Archibald, and that amount is $2,950 for the Phase 1 services.
Can I ask a question on that?
Certainly.
Is that a group that we've worked with before, or you have experience with?
Yes, I've worked with them in Pawtucket. They're a Pawtucket firm. I did quite a bit of work with them, actually. They're a reputable firm.
Yeah, I guess generally speaking, while the lowest bidder is a good thing financially, it's not always the best choice in terms of work, et cetera. So I'm just kind of curious if there was more to it than just lowest bid in terms of the recommendation.
Well, for this particular work, it's a Phase 1 administrative report based on just the history of the site to make sure that there's no reason to have a Phase 2. So it's much more of an administrative background history check on it. So, but I have worked with JRA quite a few times actually, and they're very good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So for this particular one, it would be a motion to award phase one environmental assessment services to GRA in an amount not to exceed $2,950. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Mr. Lindgren moves to make that motion to award in an amount not to exceed $2,950 to GRA Phase 1 Environmental Assessment Services. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Bolio. Member Bolio. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And anyone against would be nay. Hearing no one nay, it's that passes 7-0. So next is move management, recommendation to award. We're back up to John.
Yes. Again, this was a bid that was put out for the move management services associated with relocation of the components, mainly from J.J. McLaughlin Cumberland Hill Elementary School over to the high school for the transitional space, as well as some additional work within the Cumberland Hill Elementary School, where storage will be placed within the existing gymnasium and cafeteria spaces. We put this out to bid. We received 2 bids from the 5 companies that were solicited. And after scope reviews with the 2 submitted bids, our recommendation is to go with Astro of New England. Their bid not to exceed amount of $43,452.50 is the lower of the 2 bids. We are familiar with both companies. They both reputable. However, the cost from Gentry, the other bidder, was about $8,000 higher when considering the alternates. And so our recommendation is to go with Astro of New England for these services.
Okay, so this one would be a motion to approve Astro of New England for move management services in an amount of $43,000, not to exceed $43,452.50. That's correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Are there any questions or comments or motions with respect to this award?
Can I just get an idea as to what the scope of this is?
Sure.
Sure.
Go ahead, John.
You want to do that, Holly, or you want me to?
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay.
We did walk through with all 5 of the companies that were originally interested, and have walked through multiple times with the principal and the district, determining what furniture is going over to the swing space, what furniture is being stored in the different schools, and then so that's all going to happen the week of the 28th. So they're going to literally, everything's been labeled different colors, whether it's getting thrown out, moved into different areas, and brought over to the swing space in the cafeteria. They then will come back, which is a date to be determined at the end, you know, when the furniture can then come upstairs from the cafeteria in the swing space into the classrooms. So, and this also, we did get a price for storage trailer on site in case there's furniture in the transitional building that needs to be moved out of the transitional building to make room for the swing space, and there's possibly no room in the high school. So it's kind of a dominoes effect on the movement in
Holly, it's just not furniture either, right?
It's everything from IT, anything, furniture,
Right.
Fixtures, equipment. I apologize.
Right.
So everything from, you know, they're in charge of labeling and getting all the IT equipment where it belongs and making sure it's safe. And you know, actually, I was pleased to see the numbers, because these numbers can be all over the place when you come in and try to get these services. So the number.
So you said this is like in 2 phases, Holly? It's a move from one place to another and then back again? Are
Yeah.
both of those, are they both included?
Yes. What we did was originally we were just going to move it over to the swing space, and then there was the idea that the district would be able to move the elementary school furniture up into the classrooms, but it just seemed crazy to not at least get a price. And then the price came back very reasonable to have them come back and just manage the whole thing.
All right, I'm good.
Just out of curiosity, is there any coverage like from a damages perspective?
Yeah.
Having done some moves, I've seen things get broken, and just how do they handle that?
Yeah, the RFP goes out with very specific liability numbers, and they have to cover this for this particular kind of work. That I agree with you. That's incredibly important. So there's an industry standard that we outline, and that makes sure that the district is covered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? So I don't think I did get, so we do, unless someone remembers better than I do, I don't think I got a motion to award the moved management services to Astro of New England in an amount not to exceed $43,452.50. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make it, Mayor.
motion.
Mr. Prignano?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Prignano moves passage. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Lindgren. Any further comments? Those in favor would signify by saying aye.
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 Those against would be nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it 7-0. Thank you.
Just
Next.
informational. I think we had
Yep.
$65,000 budgeted for that, so it came in quite a bit under.
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I meant to ask that question. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So C, general contractor recommendation to award for renovation and addition. John?
Thank you again, Mayor. So this was associated with the projects for both locations. Again, J.J. McLaughlin, Cumberland Hill Elementary School, the addition and renovation scope of work there, as well as the renovation work at the Cumberland High School transitional swing space. These projects went out to bid a couple weeks ago. Bids were received on Friday afternoon of last week. And opening the bids, we received actually 4 bids for the Cumberland Hill Elementary School project, and we received 2 bids for the transitional space portion of the project. We had, I think it was about 10 contractors that had originally come to the walkthrough. And then we also, in conjunction with those separate bids, received 2 combined bids from 2 contractors if they were to be awarded both projects together, simultaneously, as opposed to separating the 2 projects. So we then assessed the review of the bids, also per the RFP and what was required for submission from the bidders. Ironically, only one of the 4 bidders actually followed the directions of the RFP and submitted references. That company was H.B. Collins. The other 3 bidders did not provide any references. We have subsequently, I contacted a number of the references from the H.B. Collins list. All of those gave glowing reviews, were very positive, having worked with them previously. 1 or 2 actually are working with them currently, but all the comments and feedback was very positive for H.B. Collins. As another part of the matrix, as far as the grading process, if you will, was associated with the experience and qualifications, compliance with MBE participation for both the general contractor and the subcontractors. All of the bidders provided that information, and that was part of the matrix in scoring. You'll notice they all received that full score, the 35 percentage points. And then as far as the costs, that was the other component that is factored into the matrix and scoring. That is based on, their costs, again, associated with the pricing for each of those projects. And those were ranked according to, the costs that were submitted by those contractors for each of the three components. So that matrix is attached as part of the documentation that Mike had shared earlier. So hopefully that helps to explain that. As far as the references, because HV Collins was the only one that did submit that, they did receive the full 35%. The others received a 0 based on the fact that none of them submitted any references for us to verify. So based on the costs and that information, after assessment of the bids, our feeling is that it would be advantageous to look at pursuing the bid from HV Collins associated with having them perform on both projects. This will give us ultimately a savings, cost savings of the two companies that did provide pricing. If they were to receive both projects, HV Collins was lower than Aalborg, which was the other company in question for doing both projects at once. And again, this will provide us with some cost efficiencies as far as management and oversight. We feel that this is advantageous to have the company do both projects as opposed to looking at trying to split this up between two contractors. Ultimately, this will give us the best financial approach in performing both of these projects. So that is the assessment and initial summary. And if you have any questions, I can hopefully try to answer those. Again, the backup documentation was included by Mike, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that, which certainly goes into more detail. Also addresses some of the alternates associated with the two projects themselves.
We should add that we had the opportunity to have a scope review with HV Collins,
Thank you.
and they included all of the work that were in the bid documents and their bid.
Was Collins the only
Thank you for
one
adding
that
that.
was done with?
I'm sorry?
Was Collins the only company that was done with?
Yes, that was based on the numbers that we received and the complete package that was submitted by them. The intent was to make sure that they did have the entire scope of work included, that they were not missing anything, and that they understand the bid documents in full.
And how do these prices compare to the budget?
The budget, the costs for the J.J. McLaughlin Cumberland Hill School actually came in under what had been forecasted as the construction budget by about almost $2 million. And the costs for the transitional swing space were a little bit high based on what we had budgeted. However, it should be noted, there was quite a deal of scope that was transferred from the final phase for the high school scope of work into this current scope of work. So that number actually does need to be adjusted to accommodate that. We have not done that yet on our financial summary sheet. So ultimately that will end up coming in either under, or actually it will come in under what will be the forecasted budget once those numbers are transferred over to accommodate the change of scope of work.
So with Collins, they basically are, we get some economy because they'd be willing to do both, and there was some sort of discount with that, and those two numbers are less than what we expected to spend in those two areas?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And is this firm such a firm that might be able to work on other elements of our project as we move forward as well?
Yes, that is certainly a possibility. We did mention that actually in the scope review, that this is just the first of several phases within the Cumberland School District and upcoming construction. So yes, that was mentioned, and they did seem very interested in that possibility moving forward.
just for my benefit, is there, when you have a project that's spread out like this over a number of years with different phases, do you often have like a kind of a mixture of different contractors in, or do you typically tend to be more consistent with those awards?
To be honest, Rick, it depends on the timing, and it also will depend on the scope of the projects. To be honest, don't envision HV Collins being able to do all of the projects, moving forward. We have a couple lined up, proposed for next year, which are pretty significant, and expecting or hoping that one contractor will be able to take on a couple of projects that are $10 million is probably asking too much, to be honest. So as we move forward, the hope is that assuming that they perform properly and well on these first two projects, that we would be able to use them again in the future. However, using them on all of the projects, I would not assume that we would be proceeding that way.
There's 3 projects scheduled for next summer, and all of them are pretty substantial.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Have we, is it still something that's in the stage of discussion as to whether or not we're going to just do everything with the general contractor way of doing business or the construction manager? Have we stuck our flag in the ground on that yet?
I believe, Mayor, that the intent was to do a GC for this first round. And then because of the schedule and the bonus points on how they roll out, it may be advantageous to actually use a CM next round, because we have to have it contractually locked in by December of 2022, have all of the work, which is why, that's a lot. And even if that date shifts by the state, it still may be, a CM can manage that scale of projects and do, 2 or 3 projects at a time and without a problem, especially on a set schedule and deliverables. So I don't think it's been decided that GC is the way we're going. We just felt, because of the type of projects these were, that would be the best fit right now.
No, thank you, Holly. That's my recollection of the discussion that we've had previously, but I just wanted to confirm. So I appreciate that. And
actually, HV Collins, when you look through their portfolio, they are a CM as well. So they may come in if they both do GC and CM work. So it would be interesting to see if they are interested on that scale after this experience. And they do have a fantastic reputation, and I know we were very happy to see that they came in.
So just procedurally, right, if you looked at the the bid tabulation where on the not the swing space, but the Cumberland Hill Elementary School. So obviously HV Collins wasn't the low bidder there, right?
Right.
And so when you combine, but when you do the combination and you add the alternates, right? So so I'm just trying to cover the procedural base. So the other 2 bidders that were lower, they didn't. What's the reason why they didn't? They just didn't submit for both packages. Is that why?
Yeah, they didn't come in for the swing space at all. So, and they also had no references. I mean, there's lots of reasons. And this type of project with the Summer Slam schedule is very difficult for any general contractor. So there is just from a purely managing the process and making sure the deliverables happen, having one general contractor working within the district at both sites alone, schedule alone, because we all know what happens if they don't hit these kind of schedules. Was one of the reasons why there was really a very strong opinion about going with a firm that was a reputable big firm that can manage this level of business and of work and do both schools at the same time. So all of that was taken into consideration. And what John had mentioned about not having references to these other firms, it was very outlined. If you look at the cover letter that was written, it outlines the points and how they earned the points, and the fact that they were submitted without having even much of, qualifications listed and primarily just numbers for this particular project was a little strange.
So just so I'm on the same page, so are we trying to combine C and then, which would be under the McLaughlin Cumberland Hill Elementary School, and then A, the Swing Space High School? Are we looking for, because that isn't, is that what, am I incorrect, or are we trying to kill both those birds with that one stone?
That is correct. That, yes, from the agenda, I assume you're referring to, Mayor, the
Yes.
item C, and yes, and then the item A for the transitional building we would be looking to combine those two at this point.
And would it be in the amount not to exceed 10,626,765? Is that, am I looking at that right?
No.
No?
Well, there are two alternates, right? So John, right? So it's, John, if you run the numbers.
Yes, so the alternates, there were actually 3 total, but there were 2 that we are looking to incorporate into the scope of work. The first alternate is associated with the transitional swing space, where we are looking to add a new exterior entrance door and canopy, and then also 2 interior doors to that space. That alternate, which is referred to as alternate number 1, would be an additional $59,980 to the base bid. And then the other alternate, which is alternate number 3, which is associated with the J.J. McLaughlin Cumberland Hill Elementary School project, is associated with removal of the existing and installing of new shingled roof areas for that school. That amount is $160,635.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. So if you, what are we adding? We adding the 59,980 and the 160,635, right? Okay.
Correct.
Right,
which would give you a total of $9,806,045.
Which is in the documentation, but so I apologize for that. It's in the documentation, but I guess I was adding the other ones just to so the motion so I guess the motion is going to be to award the renovation and addition to the transitional swing space and Cumberland Hill Elementary School in an amount not to exceed $9,806,045. Is that right?
That is correct.
That is correct.
So before we go there, I've got a couple of things I would like to add. I think the total amount may have a math error. I think if we add up the alternates and the base bids, it's going to come up to a little bit more than 9,806. I came up with 9,815, but forgetting that for the moment, can somebody pull up the analysis for McLaughlin School? Whoever's got control of the screen.
Mike, John, can you pull that up since Mike is not here? I don't think Mike is here.
Yeah, Mike's here.
Oh, I thought he said he couldn't.
Oh.
He sent an email that he was.
Yeah, while that's happening.
I can try to share my screen if Mike's tied up.
Yeah, I believe he's.
Yes. So we've got like 2 numbers that combined yield some sort of savings, and then we've got 2 alternate scopes of work that we were looking to add. And just for the chairman's benefit, these were brought up last time, not really discussed, but we needed to potentially vote on them in order to include them in these packages. So there might be some more conversation there needed.
Regarding the alternates themselves.
Yes.
The other thing I'd like to add real quick, per the comment you just made, I think the savings that are being referenced are savings that we would realize going with H.V. Collins versus Aalborg. They do not take the other bidders into consideration on McLaughlin. Can you pull up the screen, not the summary here with the two of them? Can you pull up the screen that's got all four bidders for McLaughlin, please?
Certainly.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So what I'm seeing here, and this is close to 70% of the value of this first contract, the work at McLaughlin. The other 30 is work at the high school. So we're recommending an award to H.V. Collins at $7,426,000 down in the lower right-hand corner versus either one of the top two. The lowest is at $6,000,008. Are we really willing to take that? That's a $580,000 delta. I agree that there is some economy of scale here in working with one contractor versus another, but is there $580,000 worth of economy of scale in not considering E.W. Berman because they did not provide references? I think at least most of us who have done this for a little while are smart enough to know that any reference that any of these people provides is going to be certainly a reference that will give you a good review. I mean, nobody in their right mind would provide a reference that, you get somebody on the phone and you're going to say, well, we'd never hire them again. So I guess part of my problem is with the degree of weight that was given the references and the zeros that are in the scoring column for that. You're talking about, like I said, a $580,000 difference here between E.W. Berman and H.V. Collins. I mean, I'm not familiar with tower construction. I am familiar with Berman, Aalborg, and Collins. They've all been around for in excess of 50 years. I went today, just for the heck of it, I went and looked up litigation against either Berman or Collins. I found one instance of litigation that they were involved with, one instance each. And it sounds like, then they're not, and I mean, that happens to most contractors at some point over a 10 or a 15-year period. You get involved in a dispute that you can't work your way out of reasonably. I wonder why we're looking at 70% of this first grouping of work and giving away an additional $600,000 because we're trying to award this to one contractor.
Well, there's definitely a cost difference there, Mark, and I saw that as well. My question really comes down to, who's going to be able to get this work done, and is there economies that go beyond monetary in terms of having one company trying to, handle both and have the resources to handle both. As somebody who tries to hire people routinely, it's a pretty difficult market out there to hire anybody. And, I just would have to wonder if one company can handle that better, being able to kind of flex the workforce as needed between the two sites. 10% doesn't seem like a whole lot to me with these type of numbers, regardless of the actual total. I just want to make sure that we've got good contractors, because I've certainly seen the impact of taking the lowest bidder here in Cumberland, and often it's not pretty. So.
Well,
I have a question.
yeah,
First of all, let me just, before I ask this question, let me just state publicly that I, respect those of you that, have been through this process before and, have served on building committees before and maybe, even in the business. Let me just state that right up front. But my question is, if a company is supposed to be providing a specific amount of information, like that, this is what we need you to provide us in this bid, and the company doesn't do it, like, maybe this is a really poor analogy, but like if we're looking for an employee and we say, this is the information that we want you to provide us, and if there's competition, like, we don't even consider them because they haven't, for whatever reason, provided us with the information that we requested. So I guess my just thinking out loud here is, does the fact that we asked for something and it wasn't provided, does that mean anything? That's my question.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was on mute there, but so just for clarification, on the references, was that if you were bidding on both projects, or was that a prerequisite for if you were only bidding on one of the projects?
Mayor, that was actually a prerequisite in all three RFPs. So if you were bidding on one or if you were bidding on both, that same evaluation criteria was included within the RFP.
Okay, so that, I mean, so I do agree with Mr. Lindgren there that obviously no one is going to give references that are poor,
Sure.
but it's also hard to believe that, and Mr. Lindgren knows a lot more about this than I do, that companies that have been in business with, which that's really just to check the box. But then I know we don't have legal assistance here, but it's one of those things where if that's a requisite, prerequisite for the bid, and you don't do it, and someone who did do it then doesn't get the bid, I really don't. I think that's an unfortunate situation, because I do think that it's a serious question to leave over $500,000, out, on the table there. So that's that is perplexing that they wouldn't have provided that, when we all know that shouldn't really have been a big deal. I do agree also on the math. I'm not coming up with that 9806045 number. So maybe we should just double check that.
Yeah. So John, did you run that again?
Yeah, I'm doing it now, actually.
Okay.
I'm still coming up with the 9,806,045, adding those three numbers together.
Can you just walk us through which three, John, please?
I'm sorry, Rick?
Can you walk us through which three numbers you're pointing to?
Okay. I'm looking at the 9,585,000. Actually, let me stop sharing my screen here. 9,585,430.
I think that number is wrong.
Yeah, that's the one I'm having a problem with too. Yeah.
The compilation of the two numbers should be 2,329,850 for the high school, the swing space, and 7,265,495, and that totals 9,595,345. And Mayor, if I could, I mean, we do a lot of work in public works circles. there are bid requirements that are considered mandatory, and then there are bid requirements that are considered something less than that. And things like the bid bond, things like submitting a minority business enterprise plan to ensure that you have proper percentages, those are mandatory. They'll get you kicked out immediately if you don't provide those. I'm less familiar with private projects. I think the requirement for providing recommendations could be considered something less than mandatory. I don't know how it was worded in the bid documents. I can tell you that the company I work for, we've seen some bid documents that were so ridiculous, given that you know, with the number of things that the engineer or architect is requiring, we've seen some that are so ridiculous, you couldn't fill them out in 2 hours. And these things are generally done in, you know, the last 10 minutes before a bid is submitted. So we have often left out things that were requirements of the RFP. I just have a big problem getting over leaving that much money on the table for something that I don't consider to be, you know, a huge issue.
You know, okay, Bob. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with Mark. Then my suggestion would be, let's not include that request in any bid package. I mean, why are we asking for it if it's not going to mean anything?
I'll almost guarantee you, Bob, that going forward, if we have 6 more bids go out, you will get bidders in each one of those packages that will not provide bid references.
Then I would suggest, if it doesn't mean anything, don't ask for it. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think
I don't have a problem.
Hold on a minute, Mark. Hold on
I
a
don't
minute,
have
Mark.
a problem asking for it. I think it's probably a worthwhile thing to get. I guess what I'm saying is, I wouldn't just offhand eliminate people who don't provide that. That doesn't fall into the same category as some of these other documents do.
Holly?
Yes, if you look at the cover letter with the recommendation, the language and how it's structured within the RFP is exact. So that was taken from the RFP so you could see the breakdown of scoring. So it wasn't in a narrative, it was very specific. So the cover letter that John has signed regarding this particular contract, on the bottom of the first page into the second, it outlines the percentages. So that's where that scoring criteria came from. It's typically something that we use on actually all of our RFPs. It is, you know, and I think also, you know, for qualifications, John, if I'm right, I don't even know that some of these didn't even put real qualifications in there. They really responded to just this bid package, specifically for this contract, and not necessarily showing their portfolio of other works that they've done. So it was a combination.
Right.
Yeah, personally, Mark, I appreciate your experience here in the field and in on these committees and stuff like that. But to me, this seems like a fundamental element, as Bob had put it, easy bar to clear if you needed to. And, you know, given some of the litigation conversations that we've had in the past with people who are saying, you know, they weren't considered fairly, you know, given the circumstances, and, you know, letting people in after the fact because, oh, that's not what I really meant. I mean, to me, if they're going to be that haphazard and sloppy at the front end, it's not going to bode well for the back end.
Yeah, so let me just jump in because, you know, at 7:30 tonight, I got a council meeting that we're going to award a bid for, you know, some professional services. What I want to know is, in specifically in that bid package, because we wrote it in my office, there was the scoring. So in the bid package, the RFP that went out was which is outlined in this letter on the proposals, was the scoring evaluation criteria in the bid package.
The package that went out to them that they responded to, yes.
Yes. So it clearly stated that they would be 35% on experience qualifications, 35% on references, and 30% on cost. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So in absence of having legal assistance here, I mean, I find no disagreement with Mr. Lindgren. It would, it's going to have an asterisk next to my vote, but if that's what the RFP said, then those that did have to score higher than those that did not. And I don't really think I have a leg to stand on other than that, although I do understand that there might be some question in that, but I don't think I have an option based on that. So did we get to the number? So you are confident that the number is 9,806,045.
Yes, I believe part of the confusion may be if you take those two numbers, you do get a total of 9,595,345. Correct?
Yeah.
Mark, okay. The discrepancy, if you will, is because with HV Collins, if they were to get the combined, both projects combined, their number is the 9,585,430. They dropped their number based on receiving both of the contracts.
Like
Okay.
10,000? Right.
Yeah, roughly 10,000.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, but that's why there was that discrepancy on the math.
That's okay. So if the committee was so inclined, the motion would be to award HB Collins in an amount not to exceed 9,806,045 for the Cumberland High School transitional swing space and the J.J. McLaughlin Cumberland Hill Elementary School work that's in the bid or whatever, for lack of better terminology. That's what we're looking for?
Yeah.
Right.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make
And
that
that would-
motion.
All right, Member Bolio makes that motion. And that would be for item C under 5 and item A. And just for clarification, that's not the phase 1 environmental that was already passed by the general contractor, A. So hopefully I haven't confused everybody if we're following the agenda. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Trignano. Is there any further discussion? Anyone?
Just a quick question, if I
Rick?
could.
Yep.
That 958 5430, did that include the two alternate scopes or not?
That did not.
Okay.
Rick. No, that's why those are added in, per the letter.
But the 9,806,045 does.
Yeah.
Yes, that does include it. Correct.
You with us on that, Rick?
Yes, just wondering exactly what sum we're voting for right now, that's all.
9,806,045, which
Okay.
would be the combination less the 10,000 discount, if you will, plus the two alternates.
Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comments or questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No, nay,
So that passes 6-1. Is it 6-1? Yeah, 6-1 with Mr. Lindgren in the negative. All right, thank you. Next, we have public comment. I'm not sure if there's anyone in attendance who would like to address the building committee at this point. I don't think there is anyone. So next is scheduled the next meeting. Do we have, I know I missed at least the last one, so do we have a scheduled next meeting?
Well, we may need one before a month. I guess, as this goes further and we're doing more and more RFPs out for different work for the different schools, if we could set it every 2 weeks, and if we don't need it, can we do it that way so it's on the books?
Yeah. So When would that be? Are you looking for, is it going to be a Wednesday night now, or is it?
I think we picked Wednesday this week because we needed some time from the bids coming in last Friday to prepare. So Monday or Tuesday, I believe, was what we were shooting for last time. So if you want to keep it on a Monday, it depends on the board schedule. We're open on Mondays.
So are you looking for like Monday, the 28th?
Sure. But I will let you know well before that if we don't need it. So
Okay. So we're going to hold the 28th, June 28th. Is it 6? Is it still 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
All right. June 28th at 6 p.m. Unless we receive word that it's going to get changed.
Yeah.
Holly,
Should
Yeah.
we
Holly,
book?
we may need to come before with the high school pool wing, if you want to mention that.
Right. Well, that's actually that was outside the bonds, right? So we can. Why don't we talk about that tomorrow's meeting, and then we can circle back. And so you mean meeting prior to this in 2 weeks and maybe next week? Is that what you're saying, Alex?
Well, I'm just saying it's outside the bond, but it's part of the project they're managing. I don't know if the building committee is only involved with something if it comes out of the bond proceeds or if it's part of the project that's going on and being paid for possibly with other sources. So, I would leave it up to the building committee if they want to.
I'm sorry. Somebody was texting me there for a council matter. So can you just bring me back up to speed on that?
The Univent project has some abatement work done, and the district is considering doing more than just for this project because of the level of asbestos that's in the high school flooring. So it was. Alex had talked about perhaps doing it part of this project, but not funded by the bond. So we have a meeting tomorrow, and we were going to discuss it. So he's asking perhaps he doesn't want to wait for the 2 weeks if he wanted to bring it to your attention before that.
But obviously, for it to be in front of us, it would have to be, the intention would be to fund it from the bond.
That's what I said. So if
Okay.
it's not being from the bond, it doesn't
If we
really.
don't, because I don't think we've got the proceeds in the bond for this at this point, we would try to find another source.
Right.
But that would not be the purview of this particular
Okay,
committee.
that's fine.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure before someone said, gee, that should have went to the building committee if you were gonna do something.
You know that I will let you know, Alex, and if that was even thought about being occurrence.
Good chance you would.
Yeah, there's a very, very high likelihood, yeah.
Quick
Okay,
suggestion.
Yeah.
Quick suggestion, if I could. Our regular meeting would have been July 12th. Can we still have that as the kind of the next backup if we don't do the 28th?
That'd be great.
Okay, so we're penciling in the 28th, and if not, July 12th.
Or we may need both.
All we need, yeah. Okay.
Woohoo.
Woo-hoo. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Mitchell moves to adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second, I'm not sure who made that.
it's Mark.
Mr. Lundgren.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against would be nay. That motion carries 7-0. We're adjourned at 6:57 p.m.
Is
Thank
it-
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
is-
Thank
Bob,
you.
Bob, it was a pleasure serving with you.
Hey, Holly,
Thank you, Rick. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy it.
Holly, if I can make a recommendation,
Sure.
if we're going to not consider, I understand what it said in the RFP. If we're going, I mean, when you take 35 points out of somebody's scoring, it's almost impossible for them to make up that lost ground. Forget the fact that I agree that they were stupid for not including what they should have included.
Mhm.
I think we need to take it one step further. If we're not going to even remotely consider bids from people who don't check every box, and again, maybe it was worded that way, but if that's going to be the case moving forward, then I think we need to make it crystal clear that if they don't give us everything they want, they're not even going to be considered, because that's basically what happened here. I
Understood.
mean, I don't have a horse in this race, but, you know, I can see where we could get in trouble for not considering, you know, Berman for that part of the project, because they didn't submit references. And
So do you think, I mean, there is also language with the RFP that the district has, you don't have to pick for any particular reason, right? So if
Yep.
would you like to see the RFP? That might be, and I would love your opinion on it. It's
I
one
might-
that we use, but why don't we send that to you?
I might like to read through the RFP. Yeah, I mean, we have this discussion at work occasionally with mandatory pre-bids.
Mhm.
Is a mandatory pre-bid really a mandatory pre-bid? If you get a competent, legitimate contractor who's been in business for a lot of years, has completed a lot of similar work, if they can't get to a pre-bid at a certain time on a certain day, is that a legitimate reason for eliminating a competitor that can do good work for you? And by the way, Rick, you remember the Wellness Center? I was on the building committee for the Wellness Center. We got recommendations and we got references from the low bidder. We did our diligence. We awarded the job, and then the guy ended up walking out towards the end of the job. So believe me, checking references, you know, isn't the be all and end all.
I do agree with you about the, you know, mandatory walkthroughs I have watched that happen, what you're saying, and sometimes it's hard to imagine that they can bid on a project that they don't see, especially if it's a complex project. It's hard to imagine.
Well,
But I don't disagree with you.
There are times when maybe you can't get to a mandatory bid
I agree.
review, but you can get there, you know, 2 days later and you make arrangements with somebody to go look at the project. So,
I agree.
Anyway, just.
But I would like you to see the RFP so you could see from a, you know.
All right. Yeah, I would like to.
Okay, we'll make sure
And
we
just
send it
to-
over to you.
Just to clarify, Mark, it is specifically, it's page 16 of, you know, the RFP, at least for the combined projects where
Yep.
the section 9.0, which, you know, details the evaluation criteria. So
But it also shows language up front, John, that has.
in the front,
You know,
right.
that you can actually, you know, that there's nothing,
All right.
lowest bid is not necessarily.
Not necessarily
You're not
guaranteed.
tied to it. Yeah. You're not tied.
Correct.
No,
Okay.
and that's fine. And believe me, I don't have any problem with that. You know, that's not the thing that troubles me about this. It's just the, you know, the hole that somebody starts in for not following directions. And we've all been there. We've all been penalized because we didn't follow directions. Anyway, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
You
I
too.
know.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.